So I'm here with Mark, the founder of Captivate, and he is going to do us the honor and the privilege of walking through Captivate from his eyes so that we know how to best use the tool. So first of all, Mark, how you doing?
Hey, Ben. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. No complaints. I'm excited to see Captivate from a founder's perspective.
I appreciate that. And it's always fun doing these. It's sort of weird. If I look back 10 years and you think to yourself, how's this even a job? You know, I love doing this sort of thing, mate. So thanks for having me on.
Of course. Yeah. And Captivate's obviously awesome because of all the unique tools that you have. So who better to walk us through them than you? So whenever you are ready, feel free to take over and I will watch, listen, and ask the questions.
Fantastic, mate. Yeah. And I think it's probably important to sort of say up front that we started this because we're genuinely podcasters. You know, the old cliche of, by podcasters for podcasters. It gets a little overdone, but we genuinely would be podcasting. I would be podcasting even if I didn't build Captivate, even if I wasn't in the industry doing what I do. And I say that for two reasons, because there's quite a lot of uniqueness about Captivate, not only the toolkit, but about the way that we position ourselves and the type of podcast we want to work with. But actually, from an on-the-ground perspective for this actual walkthrough, I'm actually going to use two of my own podcasts. Now, these aren't big podcasts. They're just normal-sized podcasts that, anyone can launch. It actually, frankly, makes up most of the podcasting industry. So these are two hobby podcasts. And there's a new podcast that I'm going to be launching, which is sort of about nostalgia, about movies, about the things that we can't quite believe are reaching 10, 20, 30, 40 years old. And then we've got a Star Wars podcast, which you'll see in the background. I'm a huge geek and love Star Wars and anything pop culture. So I say that up front because this is not a staging site. It's not a demo site. It's not anything. This is all genuinely my own podcasts. So let's dig in.
Sweet.
I'll walk you through. So welcome to the Captivate dashboard. It's a very, very easy to use interface. It's something that we really focused on, that just the ease of use with this, because people, when you start a podcast, what it's like. It gets very, very busy. People don't want to be worried about the complexity. And that's something that runs throughout not only the platform, but the education that we provide. I'll talk to you about our growth labs. I'll talk to you about our office hours. I'll talk to you about our launch course and all sorts of things. But our mindset is this. It is, you shouldn't be worried about tech jargon, and you shouldn't be worried about overextending yourself with time, nor should you be worried about overextending yourself with money. You shouldn't be spending too much, and you should be able to earn money from your podcast if you so wish, in diverse ways. So this is my new podcast. This is a brand new podcast, and I chose to use this one because I'm in the throes of launching it. So what better place to start? And I'm using some really cool features from Captivate. So the dashboard is really straightforward. You'll see all the information over in this main section on the right-hand side. And then down the left, you're going to see essentially everything that you can do with Captivate. And it's quite a list. And we'll go through some of these things in a second. We've got our account up here, along with things like our revenue earnings and so on, as we go through subscriptions and tips, which we're launching in April 2023. We've got our notification center, which I'll talk to you about as well, which that basically brings together all the things that you might forget. So if you've got a guest that's booked on your podcast, it's things like reminders about that and things like your account information and so on. So really, really useful. And then we've got what we call the info panel, which includes my podcast settings, the RSS feed, and if we have it enabled, the guest booking link, which I will dig into in a while. One of the most useful things, and I think probably the reason that my keyboard is so worn out, is that I've also got this little search bar here, and I can access this either clicking in it or using Command and K. And what this does is this allows me to search for anything. I can jump around Captivate using just a quick search. I can jump to pages within Captivate. I can jump to episodes of my podcasts. I can jump to help sections, education blogs. I can even switch podcasts, which I'll talk to you about further. I can actually switch between It's How Old and Spark a Rebellion pretty quickly, which is, I'm a pretty busy person, and I like to be able to do things pretty quickly. So this is great for the power users, the people that navigate Captivate a lot. And if you're a podcaster, let's be honest, you're probably in your hosting platform quite a lot, checking your analytics. So I really, really like this. It's something that we added, honestly, Ben, because I'm a little bit lazy. So we added it for everyone, and it's really powerful. So that's
so cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, mate. It's a lot of fun. And it's what I particularly like about it is for search of things like SEO. I'm going to get all of the episodes that I've done about SEO in the past, but I'm also going to get things like blog posts and education and tutorials that we've done within our growth labs, which is actually where I'm going to start, because the technical elements, I'm a firm believer in, if you were a hosting company or if you do any job, if you do anything, whether it's software, whether, whatever, if you're a plumber, the basics you should be able to do really well. It's almost remiss of me to tell you about hosting. We do that. Of course we do, and we have to be good at it. But before that comes so much more. It's all about, for podcasters, it's all about actually, how do I launch a great show? And how do I grow a great show? And how do I grow a great audience? So what we do, and the great place to start is down here, we've got what we call our Captivate Growth Labs, which is fully built internally to Captivate. And if I click on this, we've got a heck of a lot of free content. We do actually add content to this each month. So a great one here, a good example would be Heather Osgood. If I click in here, I can just look at actually, what are some of the best practices for monetizing my podcast using sponsors? And this is a fully in-depth course. There's a lot of resources on it and so on and so forth. So I wanted to start there because, you know, the whole by podcasters for podcasters thing, it's easy to put that on a website. Once I find often with software, once the company has you paying, you're sort of left in the wilderness, and we hate that. We don't want to do that, which is why I wanted to start here. In addition to that, we also do our weekly office hours in our Facebook group. So about 3,000 members over on the Facebook group. We do weekly office hours where you can just come in and you can ask questions about growing your podcast, about how to monetize your podcast, how to launch your podcast. So it's really, really fun. I think it's really powerful. But back to the dashboard. So very quickly, running through this, we've got Captivate is set up as a multi-podcast system. So one account, you can host multiple podcasts, and the default is the list view here, but actually that's a little bit sexier, isn't it? So I can see all of the podcasts that I own, and actually these are set up to show in last published date order, but I can actually change that if I so wish, and I can quickly switch between them. Now, you might notice that I'm a little bit of a podcast geek, so I can just switch between them.
Is there any limit to how many shows you can have?
No, there is not. No, this is going to become a theme. All right. I'm going to say this is going to sound really trite, but I created this because I wanted a hosting platform that I could use. So what I found as we were building this was we looked at all the different business models and we thought this is, paying for storage is crazy. We should only pay for the thing that the company gets charged for, which is bandwidth, which is download. So we've got the highest download tier limits in the entire industry. We beat out anyone on that. So the way that we structured it was that on any account, you can have as many podcasts as you want, because when you start a podcast, you talk about this thing and you love podcasting about it. But guess what? Google just likes one thing. You always like other things and you want to talk about those things because you love them as much. So we didn't want creators to be stifled. And what that actually leads us to is some other stuff a little bit later, but I will very quickly mention it now. We also provide network options. So anyone on Captivate has the ability to not only have things like private podcasts, but also they can network podcasts together. So we've got a nerd podcast network, which I'll show you later, and I can add people and I could add podcasts that I own into that network, do cross promotion across the feeds. And if someone listens to my Star Wars podcast, guess what? They're going to get the trailer dropped in that feed for this new movie podcast. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in there. So it's a multi-podcast platform with no limits whatsoever to the number of episodes or to the number of shows. Speaking of episodes, episode management is super easy. This is a brand new podcast. It's just got the trailer out right now. It's going to be launching in April. And you can see that this is the episode list. Now, if I just switch over to Spark of Rebellion, what you're going to see is that this is a much more established podcast. And obviously it's got a lot of different episodes, and I can share those episodes. I can embed the player, which we'll look at later. I can do all sorts with that. I can look at the episode level analytics. I can edit the episode. I can delete the episode. I can look at the dynamic content status here, which this one has dynamic content in. It's been processed fine. It's all good. It works. The content library is essentially all of the files that you have. So if you think about episodes being fully finished episodes, the content library is where you upload. If you want to, you can batch upload all of your episode audio. You can upload your dynamic content files, your ads. You can upload even PDFs for download as well. So we support a range of different things on that. We also have this feature called playlists, which I really, really enjoy. We don't have any actually on Spark Rebellion. What do we probably have? We've got one on Captivate Insider. Let's have a look. So not on that one either, but we do allow people to create what is basically a playlist where you could create SEO tutorials and then have a playlist description. And then what you do is you drag episodes from your feed into that playlist. And two really cool things happen with this. You get a player that you can embed on your website that just includes those episodes. And each particular playlist gets its own feed as well. So if you wanted to, you could submit this to like YouTube podcasts, you could submit it to Spotify, you could submit each playlist to Apple Podcasts. So what that does is it becomes really powerful if you're, for example, you're like a creator or an entrepreneur, affiliate marketer, or whatever that might be, that talks about a subset of subjects within one podcast, but actually you want to monetize that particular playlist. This is super useful for that because you can sell inventory on it, you can sell ads on it, you can use our bulk ad tool to sort of insert them just across this playlist. So it's super powerful. It works really, really well. We actually do that for a number of podcasts around grouping, like TV recaps. So like here's the Mandalorian recap or Bad Batch or whatever. We have a couple of interesting and more advanced things, which I'm going to get to in a second, which are things like the show notes. But first, I'm going to just dip in. I'm actually going to look at Spark of Rebellion's analytics, because the analytics are very powerful. So IAB certified analytics, so your sponsors can trust it, you can trust it. The analytics just work. They just work. They're really, really easy to understand. And we show you how you're trending. Are you trending up? Are you trending down? We look at data across time, including this month up to today. We also do a number of deeper dives, so things like listener behavior. Now, we do some things that other hosts don't generally do. So we do allow you to overlay your episode publish dates with this one. We didn't actually published for probably, I would imagine, probably 2 months there, because we've got a bit of a hiatus on this one. So if you can see there, you see what's happening with the trending. Now, the reason that I like this, Ben, is that you see this jump here.
Yep.
It's because of this Star Wars celebration. Like, that's a really strong keyword. It's an event that's coming up that we know about, that we're attending as hosts of this podcast. And we purposely chose that because we thought that it would do something for the analytics. And sure enough, it did. So this is really, really powerful. Obviously, you get everything you'd expect. Where did people listen? Where did they come from? Geographically, where are they situated? And you can go as deep as you need to on that right to city level. What I can also do is performance compare a range of different episodes. And if we look here, this is against the first 90 days, as suspected, a Star Wars celebration episode there began to outperform as time progressed. So it's really, again, really, really fascinating, and then started to drop off there as we got a bit of Ewan McGregor news. He was announced last week at Celebration. So you can really, like, I'm a marketer, I'm a bit of a geek. So I'm not just going to write here's a cool Star Wars thing as an episode title. I want to know what's going to work. I want to know what's going to perform. So this works really nicely. And then I can dig in, if I would like to, into the episode level work as well. Now, there's a couple of interesting things at the episode level as well. I can view a summary. As you'd expect, I can look at listener behavior. For this one, I can either view this behavior as it comes in day by day, or I can sort of accumulate that data and watch it tally itself up. We've also got web player analytics. So if you use our embedded player, we can also see consumption levels. We can see drop-off rates. We can even see minutes replayed, the number of minutes replayed, if you so wish. So if you embed our player on your website using our WordPress plugin or a manual embed, this works really nicely. So analytics, mega useful. I'm a bit of a geek, so I've got this on my phone. This is all mobile friendly. It's all iPad friendly. Like, this is a shortcut on my phone, and it's like, you're a YouTuber. You know about analytics and how often we check those. So we dig into this quite a lot on our mobiles as well.
So is that, so just one question on the analytics? Yeah. Is that through an app, or is that through the browser on your phone?
It's through the browser, yeah. We considered doing an app, but it would essentially be a wrapper for the web app. So yeah, we didn't see the sense in going through the hoops of getting it approved and so on. So yeah, you can save it to your home screen on your device and just launch it straight away from there, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
We've got this link analysis, which I'll talk to you. Actually, I'll talk to you now. So what I don't like generally about podcasting is that once you've got the podcast out in the wild, it's difficult to measure unless you look at obviously your analytics. But you can't always measure much other stuff. Okay, so I'm talking about affiliate link. Go to sparkrebellion.com/stamps.com. That's the classic, or Squarespace, the drill. What I wanted to do with this one is build in what is effectively a link shortening tool. So in here, we've got this attribution links underneath promotion. What this allows me to do is allows me to build out these short links that are linked to a custom domain. So this is all free. It's all included. You don't have to pay extra for it. You can link your own domain to this for free as well. And this is, for example, like that is our Patreon link, but it's a bit unwieldy. It's not very good. It's not very branded, and I can't measure the efficacy of our calls to action. So instead, we created what we call an attribution link. So sparkrebellion.com/Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and so on and so forth. Now, what's really nifty here is that not only can I use this with our dynamic content engine, which I'll get to a little bit later, but I can also measure the clicks on the links as well. So I can come in here and I can just look at, if I look at all time on this one, what this is going to do is it's going to basically go and get all of the data from my link analysis. And it's going to say, look, who's clicked where did they go, and when did they go? When did they take those clicks? So again, you can start to measure the efficacy. I think my internet might just have slowed down on this, actually, mate. Typical on a demo.
Screen recording, yeah, exactly. But that's wild.
Yeah, it is really good. And what I like about this, it looks like it's just sticking with my internet. What I like about this is that it also plays into our show notes, our dynamic show notes, which I'll talk to you about when we get to that section. It also plans in with our content library as well. So I'll show you how these things come together in a little while. As we move further down, some of the more basic things, which I'll talk to you about, the marketing links is where I can put my Apple directory links in. We actually auto-populate these, so we've got pass-through with all of the major providers. And what this does is it populates, oh, there we go, that's the internal, that's the attribution links playing games with me. But what this allows us to do is, when people say, go and listen to this podcast in any app of your choice, like that's cool, but how do you know if that's working? You simply don't know if that's working. So what we do, and again, at no extra cost, it's completely free. Every podcast gets the single promo link. So whatever your domain is, .com/listen. And again, this is all mobile friendly. It works on iPad, and this aggregates everything, all of your show links. So you can now say, go and listen at sparkrebellion.com/listen. And guess what? We track the traffic to that, and we track each click through on this.
Wow.
And yeah, it's really nifty because you can reorder these. So for example, very often there'll be like a promotion with, for example, Global Player, or there'll be a promotion with Garner or JioSaavn or Amazon Music. And they'll say, right, give us some hobby podcasts or TV show podcasts. We'll feature them in the carousel. So what I might want to do for the month that Spark Rebellion is featured is actually drag Amazon Music to the top to max out on that, and then, rework it later when there's another promo. I like that. Because, if you run let's say you run an ad campaign on something like Overcast, you really need to max out on the results from that. So you want to be saying, maybe, actually, for that campaign, we remove all of these other links and we just have Overcast there. No one tells you when you become a podcaster that you have to become a marketer as well. So we want to try and take a little bit of that pressure, and this is a really useful tool for that. We've got calls to action that I'll not show you too much on. These just embed in the player. So in the player, you've got here's my Patreon link, and you can click that through. So these are just very straightforward. We've got a number of integrations, Aweber, MailChimp, Squadcast, and a few others that support things like transcriptions coming through from Descript that then get published into your podcasting feed with Podcasting 2.0. A lot of automations using Zapier, which I think is super powerful when we get to the guest booking, which I'll talk to you about. One thing that I really like is the sponsor kit. So many people will say, right, I've got an opportunity to get a sponsor, but I don't know what to put in the media kit. Don't worry, just pop your audience avatar and click create my sponsor kit, and we'll create you a PDF one sheet that you can then send off to your sponsors. It includes contact information, your cover art, analytical data, show overview, all your description, all the links that you need, your social media, pulls it together, takes the pressure. You can just ship that, which, people close deals with that. It's actually quite nice to see people get sponsors and close deals with that very, very often, which as a founder, that's really nice to see that. One of the bigger pieces of the puzzle when you come to launching your podcast is, of course, the distribution. So we support distribution to everywhere, one-click distribution to everywhere that supports one-click distribution. So Spotify, Amazon, Podcast Index, Player FM, and obviously direct integration with Apple Podcasts, which doesn't support one-click yet. They don't support that, but we work directly with them, take you straight into the dashboard and you can submit. So it works really well. There's some details that I really like about Captivate. We try and demystify a lot. So a lot of people say, how do I get my podcast in Overcast or Good Pods? Not quite realizing that If you're in Apple, you're in Overcast. They just drag that information. So we like to explain that sort of thing. We like to do little things like give you this information banner saying that Captivate's a really conscientious host. So we don't put your email address publicly in your RSS feed because you'll get spammed. We all get spammed from hosting companies and other companies that troll the RSS feed and try and sell you things. So we don't do things like that. We hide that email address, and we make everything very straightforward. Like anytime you're going to need your RSS feed, it is going to be there. Anytime you need your booking link, it is going to be there. So we try and stop people being frustrated. You know, when you're desperate for something, you're like, okay, where the heck is that? It's always very obvious. The last couple of things that I'll mention to you on the more sort of, the standard side of things, the podcast player and Captivate sites and WordPress. So we've got a WordPress plugin. It's called Captivate Sync. You can download it. You can install it into WordPress. You can publish your podcasts in Captivate and they'll sync to your WordPress site. You can designate a page that will become your podcast section. Or, this is why it's so cool, you can even log into your WordPress site and do all of your podcasting from there, and it will sync back to Captivate. So you can choose your workflow, which I really enjoy because a lot of people are so used to WordPress. If you're not used to WordPress and you just want a really good website, we provide those too. It's all based on settings. It's not like you don't need to build the website. It's all click, save, click, save. And these look great. They integrate with Podchaser. You've got a full search section. You've got full control of the search engine optimization at a site and an episode level. The player looks fantastic. It's all responsive. So are the websites. You can see it just looks nice. It just works really, really well. You can do everything that you'd expect on this. What I like about these sites is as well, we allow for things like email signups, integrations with Aweber and MailChimp and anything genuinely through sort of a form system that you can use to sign up. We allow things like lead magnets to be popped in there. We automatically populate this for you based on your listening links. We put these sections in for you. We allow you to add your team members to this. This is set up in like minutes. This is really quick. And there are videos on YouTube that we've created that are genuinely like, here's how to set your website up, and it's like a 7-minute video because it is that quick. One thing that we're a big believer in as well is not like overcharging for silly things. Like a lot of hosting companies will say, well, to connect your own domain name, you have to pay us $10 a month. That's ridiculous. So we don't do that. We just say, if you want to put a custom domain in here, here's how you do it. We've got a standard DNS checker. So there's never why is my website not live? We'll check that and we'll just tell you when it's live because guess what? We've got a notification system. So it's very, very user-friendly on purpose. If we get to a couple of the more settings-based things, I'll then talk to you about some of the cooler stuff as well. So podcast settings is very, very straightforward. We've got a lot of good stuff in here. There's just like, here's where you set your podcast up ready for distribution. We do a couple of things that no other hosting company does, which, being completely honest, is largely down to me being like a lazy podcaster. So we do things like I said, hide in the email address. We don't put that in the feed because people are going to spam it. You can set this as public or private. We do support private podcasting. So member only, subscriber based, email by email, private podcasting. Everyone on every plan gets private podcasting. It's not restricted to like pro plans or any of that. It's everyone gets private podcasting. We support external analytics prefixes, so OP3, which is the Open Initiative, Podcorn, Chartable, and so on. But we also believe in transparency for listeners. If I'm a listener, I want to know where my data is going. So we actually we were the first in the industry to create what we call full transparency mode. What this does is, if I enable that here, and on every episode, it will say, by the way, these are the third-party services that things like your IP address might get sent to if you're a listener. That's happening in the industry. We can't pretend it's not. So we'd rather just be open that, podcasters want to measure their data. We also do this latest episode only feed. So this is really cool for Amazon Echo, Google Home, HomePod. When you want to create a skill. So like this is good for news shows or episodic shows. This will just give you an RSS feed with the latest episode in it, which is really good for those daily briefings. Very, very useful. One thing that we do like I said, that is completely derived from me being lazy, is this default publish time. I have absolutely no idea when you press to publish an episode and create a new episode, it just defaults to like midnight Eastern time, which is crazy because I want to publish at 9 o'clock on a Saturday, London time. So we set this as default, and the time zone is respected across your analytics as well. So we shift midnight for you, so you can report in your own time zone, which is very cool. Amy and Dax are our dynamic content engines, which I'll talk to you about again just in a second. Research and planning is very, very cool, which again, I'm going to show you around. And we are, if not the biggest, we are certainly one of the biggest proponents of podcasting 2.0 as well. So this open podcasting ecosystem, we support, if not the most features, certainly one of the most features among any other hosting platform. And we support all of these brand new features that are being developed through podcasting 2.0. We're active in the development of them, including value for value. So things like if you want to start accepting sats, so Satoshis, which are crypto, you can do. It's, that's up to you. It's certainly for the early adopters right now, but it's all very, very interesting. And we're big parts of the podcasting 2.0 movement as well, suggesting things and helping to develop that standard, which is very geeky, part of what we do. Now, that's sort of the standard stuff. Now I'm going to move to some of the less standard stuff. So team members. Sounds standard, and it should be standard, but a lot of hosting platforms will say, well, if you want more than one team member, you got to pay us. Again, that's crazy. I don't want to pay to get my VA in, or my co-host or my co-founder. That's silly. So we just allow unlimited team members, and for each team member, you've got fully granular access. They can do or do not anything that you suggest. Yeah, it's really nifty, man, especially when we get to things like the networks, which I'll show you in a second, because you can do this at network level as well, which is very, very cool. Now, the team members, the reason that I like that is that you can start to do cool things with them. So you can start to display them in your website, and you can start to display them on your sponsor kit and so many other places as well. So it's what you're going to start to notice about Captivate is that you set something, here, and it helps you in 3 or 4 extra places as well, which is all by design. Which leads me to some of the more fun stuff. So the first one, you might have noticed that I'm a bit of a geek. So if I go back to my brand new show that has literally just got a trailer launch right now. This, you might not quite see it on this demo, but right here on this cover art is a little logo, the Nerd Podcasts logo, because this is a podcast all about, pop culture, but it's not the only one that we run. We run a network called nerdpodcasts.com. And I can actually create, again, at no extra cost. This is not a pro thing. It's not a business thing. Anyone should be able to do this, because if not, I think we're shortchanging people. I can create a network, and I can do all sorts of cool things with it. I can set up all my details. I can put my cover art in. I can have my social links, and I can even have a single network RSS feed. So I could aggregate all of my content across 50 different podcasts into one network RSS feed, which is essentially a giant playlist of everything. Now, we've got some huge networks using this. We've got the Horse Radio Network out in the US, which is the biggest of its type. What they do is they've got show that are all specifically niched in different areas of the equine world. But what they'll do is they have one feed for the super fans. And that's where they listen in Apple Podcasts. They listen to every episode of every podcast, and it is such a very cool bit of kit, because you can choose which podcasts go in it and all sorts. It just
super cool.
It works. Yeah, man, I love this. I mean, this gets really, excuse the pun, but it gets very, very nerdy the further you go into it as well, because you can do quick glance analytics. I can look at the podcast. I can look at what was last published across the entire network. I can look at, if I keep going, I can look at the full network analytics. Now, what's really nifty with this is that, we had that performance comparison in the show level analytics. Well, I can compare the shows as well. So I can start to say, actually, what is going on? So in that time frame, Spark Rebellion was the only thing that launched. But I could start to map which shows are actually performing against the others, especially if I'm putting marketing budget into things, what's working, what's not working. And the same with the episode downloads. I can look at what's trending across the board. Now, the reason I might want to look at what's trending is because we also allow what we call feed drops. So here, I've got my trailer for It's How Old. Now, like I said, this is a nostalgia podcast. It's talking about, like, here's Jurassic Park turning 30 years old, which is absolutely insane. How is that a thing? So I'm going to do a podcast episode on it because it freaks me out. When I publish that episode, I can do everything that I would expect. I can put all of my details in. I can choose whether it's a trailer and so on and so forth. I can do things with the guests and the research links, as I'll talk to you about in a second. I can do my SEO, but guess what else I can do? I can drop it into the feeds of all of the other podcasts within the network to expose my current audience to the brand new show. And I can even set episode title overrides and publishing scheduling just to those extra podcasts, so that I can say on Spark Rebellion, if you like this show, you are probably going to like this one. What easier way to promote a brand new podcast than to get into people that are already going to like it? And this is awesome. It's super powerful, especially when it's combined with our dynamic content, which I'll talk to you again about in a second. Some of the other cool stuff I can do with networks is I can have a network site. So, we've got this Spark Rebellion site. I can do the exact same thing to bring together all of my network podcasts. And I can link a custom domain up. So nerdpodcasts.com. Again, you don't have to pay for that. Why should you? And I can also grant team access. So this is me. I'm the owner. I can't be deleted. This is Gaz. He's my co-host, co-founder of this network. Here's what he can do to the network. Here's what he can do at large to brand new podcasts. And here's what permissions apply to which podcasts. Wow. And also, yeah, we went pretty deep with this one. It was a busy couple of weeks. We also use this podcast taxonomy, which we're a proud supporter of and proud part of, which is an open initiative to give credit to people that maybe work behind the scenes as well. So if you've got a producer that never gets, sadly, they never get the credit that they're due on things like Podchaser, we give credit. So we allow for that as well, which is very, very nifty.
That's so cool.
All right, let's talk about me being a lazy podcaster and why this system has been built for me, the lazy podcaster. One of my beliefs in podcasting is that so many people get into podcasting because they love the thing that they love, whether it's nerdy stuff or business or, software, whatever we love, we want to talk about. And that's why I start a podcast. But very quickly, what happens is I think to myself, well, wait a second. Here's all this other admin that I've got to do, some of the marketing stuff that we know about, that we talked about. But what happens before the episode is ready? I've got to do all my interview management. I've got to do all of my planning and my research. I've got to go into like Evernote or Notion or Notes, and I've got to use Calendly or Tidycal. I've got to use Google Calendar. Like, this is a nightmare. And then what I got to do is I got to copy and paste everything. I got to take this from here and put it to there, and then I've got to the formatting's gone. What a nightmare this is. That fits into Captivate's mission. All right, Captivate's mission is this. For serious podcasters, doesn't matter if you're new or a veteran, if you say to yourself, I am a serious podcaster with serious goals, Captivate will promise to either save you money or generate you money, or it will save you time, which in turn gives you that time back to be able to grow your audience. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to talk you through our research and planning tools. I'm going to talk you through our show notes templates. I'm going to talk you through our guest booking system. Starting right at the beginning. So this podcast, the reason I chose this podcast for this walkthrough was that it's got guests. I did an episode last night, was it, on Man of Steel, the 2013 Superman movie. And I got a guest from another podcast that I love called Sequel Pitch, and he booked it using the booking link, which is /booking. And everyone gets this. Again, this is not extra money. It's just included. So every show gets it. This is the It's How Old one. And then we've got the Spark of Rebellion one. And notice how they've all got different schedules. This one's on a Wednesday. I record on a Wednesday night for that one. This one's on a Friday because that's when we record. Now, I can fill all this data in. All I need to do is say to Drew Toynbee, I say, listen, here's the link. You go and book. Just like we did to book this one. It was just go to the link, find something. And they put everything in. Put all the details in. Everything. And that comes through to Captivate as two different things. Number one, as a guest. And number two, as a booking. So I've got Gaz, recording with Gaz, 29th of March on the 29th of March at 3 o'clock. And these are the interviews that I've done. I did an hour with Drew yesterday at 6 o'clock. Now, what's really cool with this is we support obviously adding to calendars, and all the emails go through like Calendly and TidyCal. You get all the reminders, you get all the here's the booking link, you get, download the invite, add it to your calendar. We support all that stuff. You can manage your availability. You can do all, here's when I'm available, here's when I'm not available, here's all the buffers, here's how far people can book in advance. Here are the booking settings. So as a great example is we integrate with things like Squadcast. So if you book using this, you've integrated with Squadcast, we'll create a recording session in Squadcast. I actually use Riverside for this show. So here's the link for that one. Everything's included. It's all in there. So everything is in the iCal or in the calendar invite. Now, what's very, very nifty about this is that because we have that information, we can reschedule it, we can cancel it. But what we do is we split guests and bookings out so that I can, if I want to, go and rebook Gaz. And I can just choose a date and time override. I can invite a new guest if I so wish. So I could invite you, Ben, and we could talk about Star Wars, or we could talk about Batman, or whatever we were into. And because I've got these guests, I've got their information. And that's cool. Now, park that up for a second. Gaz has booked on this show, or Drew Toynbee, has booked on this show to talk about Man of Steel. Now, what am I going to do? I've got to plan my episode, all right? And I've actually got it here. Like, this is legitimately last night's 12 pages of research, all right? That is legitimately it. Is it there? It's how old recording notes, Man of Steel. Where did that come from? It came from Captivate's episode planning section. So think this through. I've got Drew Toynbee, who was booked on to Man of Steel. So what I've done is I've created an episode idea, and inside the episode idea, I've put the idea title. I've put all the production notes that no one sees apart from me or the guest if I so wish. I've got the episode details, which is actually basically my intro, the opening crawl, if you like, the trailer. But look, I've attached Drew's guest booking to that. And if I so wished, I could add a research link. Now, let me show you how this works. Man of Steel box office global. Now, this is literally happening live, okay? So, Man of Steel. Yeah. Okay, that gives me what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this Captivate applet over in Chrome. I'm going to put it in. It's how old? Great Insight. I'm going to add that link. Now over here, I just come back out of that and reload that. Man of Steel. I've actually got here. And I can have as many of these as I want.
That's wicked.
Now, what's really cool about this, again, thanks to me being a lazy podcaster, is that we can do a number of things. That's currently set as being an idea. This here, that is a printable PDF. And it's got everything that you need. I can send it to the guest. I can do what I want with it. That is literally where this paper came from. And it works so well. Now, what's very, very cool about this is that, remember I talked about, I got my guest, I've got my research links, I've got my planning, I've got all the booking stuff. I've got to copy and paste it from like Calendly, and I've got to take it all like from Evernote and from Notion and all that kind of good stuff. Not true with this. The next logical thing will be, well, that's cool, mate. You've got your episode idea. What do I do? What's the plan? Have I got to, not plan the blade yet, but what's the plan? Do I have to go through here, and do I have to go and copy and paste this into an episode? No, you don't. What you do is you come to the show notes section and you set up either a template, some blocks, or some shortcuts. And this is very, very good. So the way to think about this is a custom shortcode is a single piece of information like my name or your name or like a date or something that can relatively easily change. Copyright's a great example of this, or a good one for this is actually disclaimer, like a GDPR disclaimer, for example. Blocks can be made up of text and content and custom shortcode, which I'll show you in a sec. So things like a footer. And then templates bring everything together. Now this is brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to edit this template and show you what I mean. This is my show notes template and it's set as default. What I can do is I just come in here and I've got my episode idea details. Well, where are they from? That's right. They're from the episode planning, and that episode details section. If this shortcode, what we call a shortcode, and I'll talk you through these in a second, if that shortcode exists in your show notes template, when you publish an episode, whatever is in the episode details section in your episode planning is put in place of this shortcode, like a merge field in your email list or in Word. And I can do even more. I've got access. This is the real power of why we built all of these different tools. If we can get the information, we can let you use the information. So we can get you, remember that attribution link, that measurable ad link that I talked about? We can give you every one of those. We can give you all of the episode information. We can give you all the podcast information. We can even give you conditional logic, the things like, if this episode has guests, put the guest data in. If the episode doesn't have guests, don't put the guest data in. It is mega cool. And all I have to do is set that up once. And then when I'm ready, all I do is I just convert Man of Steel from an episode idea to an episode, pop my audio in, and that will create the entire show notes for this entire show. But guess what else is cool? Look who was here. The guest. And all the research links, which in turn will go in to the show notes. Now, I said in the podcast settings earlier on that you've got the research links and planning. We allow you to put a header in there that says, here are the links included in this episode. So at the bottom here, without me putting any shortcodes or anything in, if Captivate detects any links, it will say, by the way, here are the links that are included in this episode.
Wow.
And it is super time saving. It's all dynamic as well, which is really, really powerful because I don't have to worry about updating episodes. Now, I'm going to cancel this. I'm not going to show you the full publishing because it would just say, yes, well done, it's published. What I'm going to show you next is very, very powerful for things like monetization as well. So first and foremost, I'm going to come to my content library. All right. So I've got this here. It's an advert. So I'm a big believer in, yes, we support programmatic advertising. Yes, you can work with DAX on like dynamic insertion from a programmatic perspective. But I'm a firm believer in the average 99% podcaster, frankly, like me, who has got, 200-300 listeners per episode. They can make more money going out and talking to like the local Comic Con or the local business and saying, look, give us 200 quid an episode. That's really good value for the buyer, really good value for the niche audience. It's really good value for the podcast. So that is a much more powerful way of monetizing. So what we do is we take this so much further than anyone else. So here is an audio ad that I've uploaded for Spark Rebellion, which is my other podcast. You can upload this for any, whatever, business, whatever. Because we do all that other stuff, I can also put this additional information in show notes title and the show notes. Now, this can be as long as you want. It can be, whatever paragraphs. And remember these attribution links from earlier where I linked to Spark Rebellion and said I measured the clicks. I can attach an attribution link to this audio. So let's assume that this is, you've sold a direct ad for 3 months plus your back catalog, which I'll get to in a sec. You've sold that and they say, right, I want to track this efficacy using a link, which is mywebsite.com/podcast. You create an attribution link, which turns it into sparkrebellion.com/sponsor. And then you attach this attribution link to this piece of audio. What I can do is that when I publish my episode, I can use Amy, which is our audio monetization and integration engine. I can add this as a pre-roll. I can add it as a post-roll, and I can set default pre- and post-rolls as well. That can be done in settings. Or I can find a really perfect spot right in the middle, and I can add a new ad slot, and I can add up to 3 adverts within any ad slot, and I can fine tune it, I can name it, and I can do so much with this one. It will insert them dynamically into this. Now, why is this so cool? Because anytime Captivate detects that that ad is inserted or that partner content is inserted, it will get the show notes, it will get that attribution link, and it will rebuild every episode's show notes that this ad appears in. And it will put the link in, and it will put all the text in. Why is this so powerful? Because you can now confidently sell your entire back catalog, not just from here today, in the future. And you can even sell at a higher value because you can insert the text, you can insert the links, where honestly, you cannot do this anywhere else. Now, what's pretty cool again with this one is that let's assume that this is now an ad for like MailChimp. MailChimp has said, Mark, we love the show, but we want to buy your back inventory, your back catalog, but listen, you've edited in host read ads as you've been recording. You've actually said an advert for a competitor, for ConvertKit, for Aweber. We can't sponsor the show because of that. Not quite true with Captivate. So what you can do is you can go back through all of your old episodes using our bulk editor, which is here. And you can replace all of the pre-roll, all the post-roll. But what is very, very powerful with this one is I can go to Ad Painter, and I could do this for as many episodes as I had. If I had more than one episode on this, they would all appear here, and you can do it all in bulk. I could find the slot, the timestamp where I was recording this, the baked-in host read advert for another email marketing provider. And instead of clicking to add a slot like I did last time, I can drag and I can paint over the audio. And I can say, actually, in there, get rid of whatever is there. It doesn't matter how long it is, whether I've selected a minute or 10 minutes, and replace that entire section with this dynamic ad. And it will paint over the audio. So you don't have to go back and re-edit 1,000 episodes. And what we're seeing going on here is that genuinely, mate, people are selling like their back catalog where they were never able to sell it before, because who wants to go and edit 200 episodes? Like, who has the time to be able to do that? So we built that because it was independent podcasters that have got 300-400 downloads an episode that make up the vast majority of podcasting were being penalized because they didn't have the tools that they needed. They didn't have the resources. Who has a VA that can do that? And this just makes it really, really easy. Now, obviously, there's so many other little bits that I could go into with Captivate, little bits of nuance, but that's been a long walk through, mate. But that is Captivate as it exists today. We've got a couple of things that I'm really excited about. So April 2023, we're launching single tipping opportunities where people can sort of buy you a beer or, give you a tip. We're supporting fully customizable tiering. So what that means, you can set your own subscription tiers where listeners can pay you what you ask for on a different tier basis, and where you can decide what they get, whether it's windowed content that is early access, whether it's exclusive content or whatever. So that's coming in April 2023, and it will just all work as Captivate does, man. And thank you for letting me do that.
Oh, of course, man. That was amazing. You've thought of every angle. As you're going through and saying different features, I just thought back to a time when that was a pain in my neck. So that's super cool, man. That's awesome. And so for subscriptions, did you say that you already have that? It's just now you're adding in more features, or are they launching in April, like new to Captivate?
Yeah, good question. So they'll be launching new to Captivate. We were actually just final testing it this week. So that'll include tipping and recurring subscriptions as well.
Amazing. Yeah. So by the time this comes out, for whoever's watching this, that's probably already going to be live, which is amazing. And so that's I'm blown away, to be honest. That's there's so many things there that I didn't even realize were in the tool, and I've done a decent amount of research into the platform. So that's awesome. And then another thing I love about you guys is that you always provide a ton of education. So not just the tool, but the how-to behind it. Mm-hmm. And so where can people who want to go with Captivate find the latest information on how to best use the tools that you're going to give them?
Well, that's a great question, Bennett. The place to do that, we've actually got a dedicated podcast series which we run every week, which is genuinely called Captivate Secret Hacks, because it is such a platform. So every week, Danny and Sarah and Ben, they run that over on our YouTube channel, which you can just search for Captivate and find. And every week we literally deep dive into one small piece of Captivate that you may not know existed, which is very cool. We've got a fully stocked help center. We've got live chat support. We've got a massive YouTube channel in terms of content when it comes to little tips and tutorials. So certainly YouTube for the visual aspect, and then we've got the live chat and the help center, which is right in the bottom corner of the dashboard. You've got the little chat icon there where you can access all of that. And we also do in the Facebook group as well, our office hours, where we turn up every week and we're live and we answer questions about it as well, which is very cool.
That's amazing. And what's the name of that Facebook group?
It's just called Captivate Growth Labs as well. So we tied that to the Growth Labs education. So Captivate Growth Labs, that'll get you in.
Sweet. Yeah, I love that, because there are other platforms that give a fair amount of tools, but usually not the know-how behind it. So it's like, what good is a tool in the hands of someone who just know how to use it? So that's awesome. I love that you guys focus on that so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's just I think to summarize Captivate's ethos is that genuinely was built by Kieran and I, doing long days and late nights. But we were podcasting. I'd already done 800 episodes by then of geek podcasts and education podcasts. And because the background is business and marketing and startups, the tool has been built for people that they get overwhelmed. And I genuinely believe my only job in podcasting is to stop that overwhelm. Because when I started, it sounds similar to you. When I started, it was like, how do I bolt this tool to this tool? And why is it so complex? And I just don't think that's right when all you want to do is get a microphone and talk about the thing you love. I think we've got to get those barriers down.
100%. And I think back to when I first started my show and it was just me running it. I remember thinking, like, why isn't there a place where I can do all this in one place? Because I was using like 40 pieces of software. So then when I would explain to someone else how to do this, they're like, wow, that's way too much. I'm just not going to do it. So something like this is I can't even express how much of a game changer that is, because of being able to do it from all one place and things don't get missed. I know so many times I would screw up like a guest or screw up having access to the right information at the right time. So to eliminate those bottlenecks is just massive for getting more content out there, which is obviously what you and I want to do as creators and podcasters. So that's awesome. Thanks so much, Mark, for walking us through this. That was eye-opening even to me, and I'm sure everyone watching this, it was the same for them.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Yeah, thanks for all you do as well, mate, for the industry and for creators overall. I appreciate you, dude.
Of course. We'll do this again soon, and I appreciate it because I know Captivate's always changing, so I'm sure we'll do another one of these soon.
Absolutely. Count me in.